If you haven't been with us for the last 3 weeks, I'm just saying you're catching the tail end of a series that we've done called Crucial Conversations. And crucial conversations are this. It's when you disagree about something. But it's not just about something trivial. You disagree about something that deeply matters, and somehow in the midst of it, that third element, that there's some strong emotions attached to it. By the way, I'm just saying this has not been a 3-week marriage series, because how many times in your workplace do you have a crucial conversation where it's about something that deeply matters and you disagree, and somehow strong emotions got involved? It went from the content of what you were talking about to somehow feelings got all wrapped up in this, and now it got personal. So we've been talking for 3 weeks about how do you have these crucial conversations. Week 1, I tackled 3 of the first 7 principles. Week 2, we talked about just principle number 4. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrap up this whole series today by talking about principles 5, 6, and 7. Let me do this. All of this is in your notes, okay? So grab your notes, open them up. It's going to be a little thick on the note part today, so hang with me on this. And let me give you a disclaimer. As you're opening your notes and getting a pencil or pen to write with, let me give you a disclaimer. Here's the disclaimer. Ready? We are still Christian. And the reason why I tell you that is because some of you are going, you know what? Why would you preach on this Crucial Conversations? I know it's a book. Is this really a Christian message? Are you really still teaching the Bible? And I'll say it this way. When we get visitors at our church, you know the comment we hear? We hear one of like 3 or 4 different comments, but it's the same 3 or 4 different comments. And one of the things people say is, this church is kind of unique. You use the Bible and you teach the Bible. And I'm not saying it's an indictment against any other churches out there. This is what people tell us. And I don't visit many other churches, so I don't know this, because every Sunday I kind of have an appointment with you, right? But people say this is kind of a unique place where you actually believe the Bible's the Word of God and you teach it. And we will continue to teach from the Scriptures. There is no other book like the Bible. It's the holy, inspired Word of God. It still speaks today. But hear me on this. When someone researches and writes a book that has Christian principles in it, but they just organize it in such a way that it actually might start changing your behavior and my behavior, I want to actually engage that material and deliver it to you in such a way that it might affect how you live. So the question is, are any of these principles from Crucial Conversations, are they biblical? So let me bridge that gap for you real quick, okay? In the book of John, chapter 1, verse 14, one of the disciples is writing about the Christmas story. And it's not the baby Jesus in a manger. It's the theological perspective of what happened when this child, this Son of God, came to earth and put on flesh. And here's how it reads, John 14. It says, the Word, this Son of God, became flesh. And he made his dwelling among us, which means this, that God's very character, nature, God himself put on flesh, came as God's Son. And so Jesus is the greatest representation, the exact representation of God's being is what the book of Hebrews says. And so we know who God is based off of what we know about Jesus. And out of all the things that the Word could describe Jesus as, they picked 2 words. Here it comes. We've seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. I mean, out of all the ways you could have described Jesus, the Son of God, holy. The Son of God, just. The Son of God, humble. Out of any words, the 2 that are picked to describe Jesus, which are then 2 words that describe the heart of God, are grace and truth. Go back to that video we just watched. Who needed grace? I mean, unconditional favor, just unconditional love and support. She did in that moment. Who wanted to engage the truth of it? He did. Like, well, okay, let's just pull the nail out. Let's just deal with this, and it'll be all better from there. By the way, that's not a man thing or a woman thing. I'm just saying. Guys, there are moments where we just deeply long for grace and not for our spouse to tell us what to do. And ladies, I know that you deeply desire truth as well, so forgive the whole stereotype. It was funny, though, just saying. You know, there are people who desire all grace. And they come into a crucial conversation. They're like, you know what? I'm just going to be gracious. And they're all grace and little truth. You know those people are called? Avoiders. They don't want to deal with the hard part of truth because of this. They think, they bought that myth and that lie that we talked about a couple weeks ago, that if I tell the truth, I have to choose between the truth of the relationship, because if I tell the truth, I'm going to sacrifice the relationship. They're not going to trust me. They're not going to want to be with me. And you're like, well, they're married to me. They have to be with me. Well, what about at work? Do you avoid the truth so that people will like you? Because you feel like, oh, I have to choose between the relationship or the truth. And so the question becomes, how do I be 100% honest and 100% respectful? And that's what we've been after with Crucial Conversations. 100% honest and 100% respectful. And there's other people, you love the truth. And you are little grace, all truth, and it makes you destructive. Because sometimes you love the truth so much that you don't know how to exercise grace in the middle of telling the truth. You know, there's some people, and I love them because I'm one of them, where we're gracious with people. You know, we show them grace. They might say or do something like, that was weird, kind of rubbed me wrong, irritated me just a bit. But we show them grace, right? But then they do it again. And by the way, they don't know they're doing this because I haven't said anything to them. And so they just do it again. And what does it do? It doesn't irritate us to the same degree it did before. Why? Because they should just know. And then it bugs us even more. And we show grace and grace and grace, and then we pop, right? And we pop with all this truth. Can I just say this? If you're actually showing grace with someone, it shouldn't wreck you inside. But sometimes we try and show grace and pretend like it's grace, and then it just wrecks us inside, and we pop. Question, if Jesus is all about grace and truth, and he was full of it, and if you're a follower of Christ who's trying to live like Jesus would live, what two character qualities are you going to exemplify in your home and your workplace and with your church? Maybe grace and truth. And those two values are all in these Crucial Conversations. So, all of that is a disclaimer to say this. I think the gospel is all over this book of Crucial Conversations, but I've just wanted to walk through it with you for 3 weeks, and here's one of the reasons why. I want you to be deeply inspired and your heart's right so that you desire good relationships. But you know what we fail to do sometimes as a church? We fail to actually walk through the skill development so that we can have these crucial conversations, so that we can have healthy relationships. You know that if I just kind of tried to inspire your heart, like, yeah, go out there and have those conversations, but didn't try to hand you skills to do it, we would just be more and more destructive, and we're like, gee, God just really let us down because he didn't help us. When he's like, there's actually some principles you could probably implement. So here's what we're going to do. You and I, we're going to dig in real quick to the last 3 principles in Crucial Conversations. Let's back up to where we started. Remember, in the very beginning of this, by the way, we're going to tackle 5, 6, and 7, which means we've already done 4 principles. And you know what's funny about it? This is the last week. We actually haven't talked at all about the conversation that you have. It's all been prep work. Because you remember, principle number 1 is start with heart. If you know you're going into a crucial conversation, start with heart. Ask the question, what do you want? What do you want to see happen with the discussion? What do you want to see not happen with this discussion? What do you not want to see happen with the relationship? And then ask this question. If your wants are noble, how do you behave in such a way that you get what you want? It's a great question. If you want an intimate relationship with your spouse, approaching them in a negative way is not going to get you what you want. Even though you might be right and they might be wrong, how you approach them and how you couch your words of grace and truth, you might not actually get what you're looking for. And then the second thing is this, is if you're going to have a crucial conversation with someone, principle number 2 deeply matters. Look for moments where safety exits the room. You know, if they don't feel safe, they're either going to turn violent or silent. And hopefully by violent, I don't mean physically violent, but they're going to get aggressive. Or they're going to get defensive. Or they're just going to clam up and get silent on you. When you learn to look at those things, you take the 3rd step. Make it safe with them. Do you remember how to make it safe? You know, if this is a great reference guide, I would highly encourage you, take your notes, keep them as a reference guide. But if you remember anything, remember this. When it becomes unsafe, mutual respect, mutual purpose. Which means what? Let them know that you care about them, mutual respect. The second thing, let them know that you care about what they care about. Your coworkers, they want to know that you actually care about what they're working on, that their contribution matters, what their hopeful outcome is. I think our kids and our spouse are the same way. They need to know that there is space in this family for them and what they care about. Even if we're not really that interested in what they care about. We need to. Make it safe. Then last week, we just talked about this one principle. Master my story. Do you remember what this was about? I'm going to go through it really quick because it's complicated. When you engage a relationship or conversation with someone, you make observations about what you see and hear. But instead of it creating a feeling in you, you jump to the next step and it creates a narrative in you. Like you start telling a story. Oh, she said that because of this. Or he said that because of this. Yeah, my coworker, he never listens. He's argumentative. He's lazy. And you have this story that you tell yourself about that person. And then you get these feelings. Well, because the story is they're lazy, I just don't like lazy people. Do you know how hard I work? So I am irritated, and then you start developing this language of negative feelings about them. And then you behave and you act out. So what did we say last week? To master your own story, you have to retrace your steps and look at yourself and go, how am I behaving? Am I actually a part of the solution to this? Did I go silent or violent? Well, if I'm not behaving in a way that I think Jesus would, then what are the feelings in me? The things that are driving me. And then I got to back up and go, well, what's the story I'm telling myself about that person? That person is... And then you have to go back to the very beginning. What did I actually see and hear? And separate the facts from your story that you're telling yourself. And as you separate them, what you're trying to do is you're trying to become open to maybe there's actually a different story there that we didn't even see before. Like maybe they're not just angry, maybe they're actually hurt by something we're doing. And they're lashing out in that. So they're not a bad person. Maybe they're just a wounded person. But remember the number one character quality we talked about last week that requires? Humility. It takes humility to realize that maybe we don't have the corner of the market on truth. So here's what's interesting. 4 principles. We haven't even talked about how to have the conversation yet. And this is the hardest part, isn't it? It's the moment that you're sitting across the desk or across the dinner table or sitting in the car together and you're about to open your mouth to bring up the conversation. And it usually starts this way. I was thinking, it just doesn't start well, does it? Or, hey, I wanted to talk to you about something. And all of a sudden, even though, is that the code word? Is that the code word for this conversation is about to get really ugly? Could we talk? No! Let's not talk. Because you know what it means. You know what it means at work. You know what it means at home. So let's talk about how do you have the conversation. Can we do that? If you know those 4 stages I just walked through, here's what you do. You just walk someone down your path. You start with this. Share what you saw. Hey, when you're in the meeting and you were banging your fist on the table, you're just sharing facts, right? Because you have to separate fact from story. You just share the facts. Hey, you know when you told me that you would be done with that last week and it's still not done? I'm just making an observation because it's hard to argue with facts. You're not telling your story. You're just sharing your facts. After that, you need to talk about the story. Because you bang your fist on the table in that meeting, I'm beginning to create a story in me. I'm beginning to think that you're angry and your anger shuts down the conversation around the table. You're just talking about, this is kind of a story that I'm beginning to tell myself. And then once you share what you've seen and you start telling your story, ask for opinion. Help me understand, am I seeing this accurately? That's where the humility comes in. Because when you talk about this, you want to share your facts, you want to tell your story, but at that moment, ask. Say, I want to ask for your path to help me understand, am I not getting it? Because you're open to hearing a new story. It's hard because, in our heads, aren't we right about the things we're right about? We think we are. Because there's moments where like, I know this is true. I know, but their observations of you too, and their reality of you, there's probably some truth in that too. But we got to come to a common story together. When you do this, number 4 is not a, hey, here's the next step. It's more of like, do this all the way through. Talk humbly. State your story as a story. Don't disguise it as fact. You know what the truth is? You're just angry all the time and you got daddy issues. Okay, time out. Be humble. It seems like you're angry a lot, but that's just a perception I'm getting. But help help me understand that. The fifth one is kind of similar to the third. It's just encourage testing. We got to make it safe for other people to express their stories, their facts, and what it is that they think. So, you just made the opening statement. Here's the facts, and here's the story I'm beginning to build. What's going to happen right then and there? You're going to get some immediate feedback. And guess what? When you told the story, you were really hoping that they would be gracious with you and listen. Well, if you wanted grace, just get ready. You're going to have to give it right then, because it's about to go violent or silent. Because if you sprung this conversation on someone and they didn't know it was coming and they got called out, the hair on the back of their neck just went up, they just got stiff, and they're actually not trying to listen to you. They're actually trying to formulate a defense, aren't they? Because, come on, let's be honest for a sec. When somebody comes at you with their facts and their story, aren't you trying to come with your counterpoints? That's what you're thinking about. And you can't actually listen and do that at the same time. You're about to get some feedback that could go violent or silent. And so in that moment, here's principle 6. You got to figure out how to listen. How do you make it safe? How do you listen when others blow up or clam up? Here's just some things to listen. Just ask in order to get things rolling. I mean, if something, they either clam up, they don't want to talk, or they're talking about something in an angry way, you don't want to go, well, when you pull yourself together, we can have this conversation. Okay. Well, when you hop off your high horse, maybe you could have that conversation. Ask them. Just start by saying, hey, I really want to hear from you. By the way, if you want to get into what are you actually feeling, do what they just call like a mirror technique. Help each other look in the mirror by just saying, I'm going to state how it is I think you're feeling. And if you're not sure, let's work it out together. Do you feel this? Do you feel that? Just mirror what you think their feelings are. By the way, if some of that will not work in a workplace, oh yeah, in my workplace, we're going to get together and talk about our feelings. Sure, Pastor. Skip it, okay? I'm not saying every step is going to work in every situation. Maybe you need to do the next thing, paraphrase. All right, dude, I just want to hear what it is that you are saying to me, okay? I understand. I'm getting feedback from you. Here's what I heard you say. And just state what you thought they said. Don't make it irritating. I just heard you say, blah, 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 blah. And pretend like you're doing something helpful. Genuinely paraphrase what it is they just said. Because you know what they might do? They might look at you and go, no, that's not what I mean. Okay, well, let's try it again. My wife and I, we've been married 18 years plus. We've gotten pretty good at this. And so good that when we have this conversation, we get it. We know what each other's doing. Oh, they're parroting me right now. I get it. But it's awesome because she'll say something and I'll be like, okay, so you're saying this, right? And she's like, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm like, okay, crap, now I really got to listen. Because what I was doing was formulating my response. So then she shares with me what is she saying. And, the third or fourth time, I finally get it right. And then I get to make my point, and she usually nails it the first time. It's irritating. She gets it right away, and I don't, and that's frustrating a little bit. But we've gotten good at this. If you could do this in the context of marriage, it forces you to listen instead of just respond. By the way, it's a great technique even in the workplace. What I heard you say is this, that you are frustrated with this department over here because they failed to deliver. Did I get that right? And they might say yes, they might say no, but at least you're having clarity around what it is that the crucial conversation's on. And by the way, if the people just clam up and shut up and no one's delivering, here's what you might need to do. You might need to prime the pump. The whole prime the pump thing, you got to throw some water in there first so it gets everything else flowing. You might have to just say, hey guys, I sense everybody's kind of disengaged in this. Here's what I think just happened. I think we kind of just hit a touchy point, and we're either afraid to speak because we're not sure we can tell the boss who's sitting over here the truth, or maybe I said something in an offensive way, and you just start throwing ideas out there, and they might go, no, that's not what happened, or they might go, yeah, and then once you get it's just got to be a safe place, and sometimes it takes that first person being vulnerable to prime the pump. So what happens if you follow these principles, you did the internal work of 1 through 4, and you hit 5, and you stated your stuff, and all of a sudden you did number 6, and you started working your way through the motions. What happened? You actually both shared, and you just don't agree. What do you do then? Do you realize this, that the nature of our society and our school system is there to pick out the differences so you can debate? We're experts on figuring out what's different and how did we not agree, and therefore we can build a case around the small things that we nitpick in order so that we can prove our point of how we don't agree. I mean, listen to talk radio. Listen to political talk radio, and we nitpick some of the stuff that goes, oh, see, they're just like this. We exaggerate things. What do? Well, the first is this. Figure out what you agree on, just the ABCs. If you come to a place where you don't agree on something, find what you have common ground on, okay? What do you agree on? A. B is this. From there, build. Okay, what else can we agree on? How do you build your stories and your scenario where you're actually going to be moving in a productive direction? And the third is this. If you really don't agree, just play the movie forward on both sides and compare the stories. Okay, if we run down your road, here's what I see this becoming. And let's play my story forward. And it's just a way better movie, okay? So you should agree with me. I'm being sarcastic. But just compare your stories together. I think one of the most difficult things about that is honestly, with your heart saying, what do we actually agree on? Because we want to be right on all of it most of the time. So here's the 7th principle. And it's not, by the way, is anybody totally underwhelmed with these principles yet? This is not rocket science. These are actually really clear and elementary. But they're so hard to live out, aren't they? Because in crucial conversations, we get dumb. Because we get emotionally involved in it and we stop thinking. We're like, what were the ABCs? I don't care. So principle number 7, move to action. Well, that's a shocker. Maybe we should do something about this. And so you come to some kind of agreement, and there's 2 reasons why you and I keep having the same conversation over and over and over again, and you actually don't make progress. 2 reasons are this. There's an unclear expectation as to how decisions are made. I'll get to that in just a minute. The second is this. We have poor execution on the decision that was made. I'll come back to that. Clarifying the decision that's being made. When I work with our board here, good guys, like these guys, enjoy being with them. Some of our meetings, we start at 6 o'clock, usually once a month. We meet twice a month, but the last Tuesday's a business meeting, all right? We handle a lot of the church business, starts about 6. We've had some that have gone to like 11:30. You know how intelligent you get after about 4.5 hours of the same meeting? Man, your IQ drops. You know what your emotions do? They get a little out of check. You stop filtering things and thinking. I found that this really helps with the board is when I come with a clear expectation of what I'm asking, meaning this. Hey, agenda under item number 4 there. Well, what I'm asking for is your input. I'm actually going to make the decision on that one, but I need your help in thinking that through. When we decide how the decision is going to be made, and by the way, number 7 down here, we need to vote on that because we just need a majority approval on that one. Because the moment that I say, hey, I need your input, and if they think they're making a group decision, it's just different. They get to the end of it and they're very disappointed. Like, what do you mean? Why did you ask us if you're going to make the decision? Well, I value your input. But if I didn't clarify it ahead of time, it's messy. Do you ever do this in marriage? I mean, probably one of you is probably better at making a decision about the car you're going to buy. Why not let them make the decision? Hey, let's talk about it and you decide. Or maybe in your marriage it's like, no, we agree on everything. Awesome, go for it. That's fine. As long as it's clear how you make the decision. By the way, I'm just saying, if you tell someone, your spouse or a coworker, hey, you make the decision, you can't complain. Honey, where do you want to eat tonight? I don't care. You decide. Okay, we're getting pizza. Anything but pizza. You just told me to make the decision. I made it, and now you complaining. There's all these couples. It's so funny. As soon as I say that, they're like punching each other. See? We did. Yeah, we're all ridiculous, aren't we? This is part of the sermon series. It's just to say, you know what? All of us, to some degree, are a little bit odd. Let me say this, the poor execution on the decision that was made. In our workplace, we come out of a staff meeting with an agenda item of who's going to do what. Let me just give these to you real quick. Who's going to do what, when, by when, and what's the follow-up to it? Who's going to do it? What are they going to do? By when? And how are you going to follow up on this thing? I mean, that's a great way to end a meeting so that you actually have productive meetings, right? You know where I mess this up? When I've done this all day at work with who's going to do what and making decisions, and then I get home. I have a conversation at home, and they end in good intentions. Yeah, we should probably do something about that. The faucet in the bathroom's leaking, pouring water on the floor. Yeah, we should really do something about that. Front yard's out of control. Yeah, we should really do something about that. I mean, what would it look like if we actually said, hey, we should do this by this time, and I got this, you got that? You're like, well, gosh, it sounds like a board meeting. Can I just say this? Every family has family business, don't we? I mean, businesses have budgets, but doesn't your family? If you don't have a budget, God help you. If your financial plan for your family is just keep making money and pray to God it doesn't run out, that ain't a financial plan. You have business in your family. So I think there's some principles that we could probably apply, but for me, it's the hardest at home. Let me give you a caveat, and I'm going to wrap up here in just a minute. This book is called Crucial Conversations, that I've taken a lot of this material from. It's not called Crucial Conversation. It's not one conversation that you have thinking that it's all going to change. I've been married 18 and a half years. My kids are 13 and 15 and a half, and she just got her learner's permit to drive. Well, she's a great driver, but it's me in the passenger seat. Do I think that my parenting and my kids are going to change because all of a sudden I read a book and had a conversation? Over 18 and a half years, my wife and I have been having crucial conversations where we listen. And I'll tell you this, our marriage has gotten better and better and better. And yeah, we got bad weeks. We got bad days sometimes. We all do. But the truth is, it gets better and better if we're both working on it. Your workplace, you're not going to change the culture of your business with one crucial conversation. But I'm going to tell you this. You first have to take a moment for skill development. Don't walk out of here thinking, I'm going to go do this, if you're not going to actually develop the skills. Because you're going to walk out of here with good intentions, and you're going to mess up those conversations, and people are going to be like, oh, nice Christian. Nice grace and truth. You know what I think God is looking for? I think God is looking for some courageous people who will work hard at implementing grace and truth in all of their relationships. Work hard at it, because here's what I know. In the back of all of our heads is this thing. It's a skeptic. It's the voice of a skeptic that says, but if I do that, people don't really change. My people at work, they're not going to change. My spouse isn't going to change. My kids aren't going to change. My parents aren't going to change. It's just going to be worthless. Really? Where's the grace and the truth of the biblical scriptures that says God is in the business of changing people's lives? He's looking for courageous people that are going to say, no, be my instrument on earth, but trust me, I will help people change. There's no guarantee this is going to turn out perfect for you, even if you handle the conversations perfectly. But I think God's looking for some brave people to say, I'm going to try it. I'm not once, I'm going to stick to it so that I can have better relationships in home, at my church, with my community group, at my place of business, so that you might represent Christ and the grace and truth that he was full of and we want to be full of. Amen?